Hey, do you find that you feel like garbage every time you cut your calories? Watch this for the solution.
Our first caller is Madeline from Washington.
Hi, Madeline. How can we help you?
Hey guys, this is so cool. You guys have been such a staple in my life and your program for so long. Wow, thank you for taking my question.
Appreciate the support.
Cool. So I'll dive right back in. Just a little background about myself. I've been lifting for about 16 years and doing your programs for about 2. They've been super helpful. But I recently started working on getting my metabolism up to about 27 to 2,800 calories. And I thought that was a good place to dive into a cut from. So I dropped down to 21 to 2,200 calories. And I noticed over about a week or 2, there was a gradual increase in like some irritability and some depression, which is just not really like me. It was kind of out of character. So I was just wondering if have you seen this before in other clients? Have you heard about this? And I will also say that I am feeling a little bit better. I did a refeed for a couple of days. And then when I went back to drop into my calories at 21 to 2,200 again, it was right around the same time that I was traveling for work and I got sick. So my movement and lifting were down. I haven't really done much since. So I've been essentially not in a deficit for the last week and I've been feeling a lot better. But I'm planning to dive right back into training next week, hopefully if I'm feeling better, and increase my movement again. So I'm just a little worried that I'm going to go back and start feeling a little depressed again. And I was just wondering if maybe I should approach this differently as I dive in, or if you have any insights there. So I'm all ears.
Yeah, good
too much
question.
Too fast, maybe?
Well, there could be a few different reasons.
Yeah.
There could be a few different reasons, but you tried this once and you felt that way. You haven't repeated this to see if it happens again?
No, but I'm planning to once I start recovering from this cold.
Okay, so this could be a situation, and I think I'm using the term right, auspicious correlation. Is that the right word, Doug? Maybe look that up. Where sometimes people make correlations with things that are not necessarily connected. For example, I've seen funny charts that show like when the price of bacon goes up by 15 cents, that the stock market drops 20%. They make these connections that aren't really connected. They have nothing to do with each other. But if you look at just those two things, they seem to be connected. So you've only done this once. There could be a lot of different reasons why you might have felt irritable and depressed that had nothing to do with the cut. Now, cutting can sometimes do this, but because your calories are pretty high and you only drop down to 2,100, it's unlikely that it came from the cut. Now, I'm not saying it's not possible.
Yeah, you're in a healthy place still.
Yeah, but it's unlikely. Now, I've seen people get irritable and depressed from calorie drops when the calories get really low. So when I see people drop down to, 1,300, 1,200, 1,000 or lower, then you can start to see this start to happen. But your calories are pretty good. So
it could be what you're taking out of your diet. That's potential. For example, like if you took Justin and you put him on a cut and you cut cheese as the main thing, I'm pretty sure he would go through. Yeah. I think he would go through a little bit of depression if that was where his calories were restricted from. Yeah. So where did you cut from? Did you cut mostly carbs, mostly fat, a little bit of both? Like, did you take a favorite food out or a meal that you normally eat consistently that starts your day? Was there anything like that?
Yeah, it was a lot of mostly carbs is what I cut out. My fats and protein are still quite high. And before I went into the cut, I also cut out like sugars and things like that. So maybe that's related.
Yeah, it could. By the way, it's called a spurious correlation. I don't want to sound like an idiot. Make sure I fix that. So it's spurious.
Yeah, I mean, some people, I found this when I was coming from really high carb is originally when I reduced the carbs, I didn't like how I felt. So some people just do better on a little bit higher carbohydrates. And so maybe when you mess around with the cut, you manipulate the macros. So maybe take a little bit of fat next time and a little bit of carbs versus mostly carbohydrates and see if you feel better.
That's exactly where I was going to go. If it was the cut, did you go to like no carbs? Like what did your carb intake go from and then what did it go to?
So right now I'm about just under 200 carbs a day, which feels not bad. But then again, I'm feeling good because I'm not moving a whole ton. Okay. So I'm not sure where I was at before. I cut it out before I started diving into the.
Okay. So when you did the cut, you went down to about 200 grams of carbs, or did you go down to like 50?
Yeah, I went down to about 200.
Okay. So it's probably not the carbs then. Yeah, sometimes when people go like really low carb, especially if their sodium intake isn't where it should be, because it could pull water out of your body. That'll make people feel a particular way. Now, here's another reason why cutting calories can sometimes cause the feelings that you have. We have lots of connections to food and different relationships to food. And there's a very strong psychological connection for some people, to reducing or restricting, or what they may feel like is restricting. So you may take someone, and depending on the relationship they have with food, now they know that they're restricting, they know that they're removing, and that alone starts to make them feel anxious. And anxiousness can lead to irritability, and then irritability can lead to depression. So that could also be the case.
I've seen also hydration and sodium.
Yeah, that's
a possibility. So I don't know if you have tried using like LMNT, but using like a packet of LMNT and then making sure that you're drinking adequate water and see if that has anything to do with it. I've seen clients before when they've gone on a cut not realize like how much their water intake is kind of low already, and now they've just reduced a bunch of their sodium, and the combination of not being hydrated, not enough sodium in the diet could make them feel like that. So that's also a possibility that you could look into. I mean, obviously we're kind of guessing at a lot of things. We don't have all the details, but those are all possibilities.
There's a host of psychological factors, I'm sure, that went into this, especially if you're not feeling good and you got a cold, and we kind of stack things a lot of times when we're not feeling good, and then that sort of plays games with us in terms of like how we perceive what we're doing. And so if you're like actively trying to cut and go in that direction, and then you're not feeling well, so we sort of associate those two together. So I don't know. I mean, again, this is the first time it happened, so run it again. It would be interesting to see how it felt. I would
100% test it again. Madeline, if you don't mind me asking, what's your history with your relationship with food? Have you ever dealt with any disordered eating or challenging relationships with food? Okay. So it's unlikely that the cut was what caused the way you felt. If your protein intake was high, fat intake was adequate, those are both essential. Your calories didn't go down to some crazy low number. The cut wasn't huge. It's not like you went from 2,700 calories to 1,200 calories or 1,500 calories, which would be a big drop. In terms of percentage of calories. It's more likely that it was something else. So I would try this again and see if that happens again. Now, if it does happen again, because we're not going to be on the phone or on Zoom talking to each other if this does happen again. If it does happen again, then my recommendation would be to do a smaller cut. So rather than going down 500 or 600 calories, try 300 calories and see if that does the trick. But I'm going to predict it's probably going to be okay. I don't think it was the calorie cut that caused those feelings that seem to be strong enough for you to even want to call in and talk to us about it. So try it again, see what happens.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I hope you're right. That would be awesome. And I'll keep an eye on the sodium as well.
No problem. Madeline, I want to give you, what programs of ours do you have? Would you like one on the house?
I have a ton of your programs.
Okay.
I think MAPS 15, I've had my eye on that one, would be awesome.
Send that over to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate the support. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, guys.
You got it. So this is a really good example of the answer to this question would have been very different had she said she went from 1,500 calories to 1,000 calories.
Yeah, an unhealthy type of.
Then I would have been like, oh, it might have definitely been
totally different state at that point.
Completely. Yeah. But because she had got her food intake to that's a really good.
Yeah, she's in a good place.
Caloric intake for a female. She's been working out for a long time. I asked her the question about food relationship history because if you have a history of disordered eating or kind of challenging relationship to food, well, I mean, any perceived restriction can cause those feelings with somebody who has that history.
But I have seen the water and sodium thing though.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I would have. That was exactly where I was going to go, but you got there first, 100%.
Yeah. So if you haven't tried this and you're listening to this, Madeline, I would do that. I would invest in. And you don't need to get LMNT. You could just throw some salt and some water. But I mean, I like how many. I mean, there's like 1,000 milligrams of sodium.
And it tastes good.
Yeah, and it tastes good, and it's just.
By the way, that's an easy thing to realize. If you're like, oh my god, I'm feeling irritable and depressed again. Go drink the jug of water with LMNT, and you'll know within 30 minutes.
Yes, that's why that's a cool one, right? It's like it's that simple. I remember I was getting headaches, and then I remember I had dill pickle. I had like a big dill pickle, and I was like, why is every time I have this dill pickle, I feel good? And I'm like, oh shit, my sodium intake must be
another reason.